let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. So, what made you what turned you into a designer in the first place?
Well, I've always been interested in creative things. I'm a musician. I've always liked photography. So before I started freelancing and building websites and everything, I was working in sales at a internet company here in Montreal. And, call center marketing wasn't really my thing. So I just had a couple clients on the side because I was getting interested in, just doing a logo here and there and some website designs. I just learned CSS, HTML, JavaScript and stuff. And then once the revenue from the freelancing stuff was enough, I just went, well, why not? Just quit my day job and just do that. But it was just like a natural thing. I just went, I play music. It's a creative thing. I like designing. I like building stuff from scratch too. So it was just a natural thing.
Okay, so when was that? What year was that when you finished at the call center?
Probably 2005. But I started designing for some friends and family in, I guess, 2003.
Right.
Something like that. Yeah.
So it's not something you could do straight away, isn't it? You've got to wait for the skills to get along and build up the clients before you could make the big jump. And what webs did you have? Spire Studios at that time?
I didn't, because when I started, I was mostly just building sites for just friends and family at first, and then a couple clients that were referred to me. But I didn't even have a portfolio or anything like that. But I mean, in 2003, 2005, I think YouTube started in 2005 or something like that. So I didn't have a portfolio, but, no big deal back then.
it was the Stone Age as far as web design was
exactly.
concerned. Yeah.
So after designing a couple websites and having a more solid experience and more skills, I figured why not build a portfolio? So I just picked a name, bought a domain name, and at first, Spire Studios was just a single page website, just contact information, just a couple screenshots, and then I added a blog on there, and then I started writing articles, and then I didn't really need the portfolio anymore because Spire Studios were bringing in revenue, and I didn't want it to take on more clients because my plate was pretty full, so I just went all in with the design blog. Yeah. I just switched the whole thing around and just made a design blog and started hiring writers. So. Oh
right, okay. So I didn't know that. So that's interesting. You started blogging, and you were getting such. I assume you were getting such good page views, and you were talking about revenue. What sort of revenue was that in the early days?
At first, it was maybe $500 a month. In revenues, I mean, when you write all the content, all the revenues is profit, right? Mm-hmm. So after a while, when you get to $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 a month, I started that's when I switched the whole website to be just to put the focus on blogging, and then since the revenue were kind of there, I figured why not hire people to write. So, the revenues took a dive, but, the page views went up. Yeah. So so that's cool.
Yeah, no. And what was the, was it from advertising, that revenue?
Mostly, yeah. That's when I found out about buy-sell ads.
Oh, right.
They were just getting started, I think, in 2000. I started Spire Studios in 2006, if I remember correctly. And I think buy-sell ads were just in the early stage back then. So I was seeing the advertise here boxes on like PSD Tuts and all the Envato websites because they were like early users. So I figured why not give it a try. So.
All right. So you must have been getting some great page views, but the traffic must have been amazing for you to get get such. I mean, obviously, buy sell ads is a great platform, and we're going to come on to them later in the story.
Yep.
But you know, that's quite amazing revenue to be starting blogging one day, and to be getting enough revenue to be able to hire writers and grow the blog the next. Obviously, it wasn't quite as easy as that. You must have tried you must have put. I know you did. You put a lot of effort into the blog posts yourself in the early days, and you continued to write yourself as well. But talking personally, I've found revenue really difficult in terms of using advertising. I've found AdSense to be the most popular, the most effective platform. Don't like their ads; they look ugly.
Yeah.
I say it's a catch-22. You know, you plaster your site with AdSense ads, and you might make some money, but the site's going to look shit. You know.
Exactly. I never really used AdSense.
Yeah.
You know, once I started using buy-sell ads, I just went, well, here's all my inventory, use it and sell it for me, and thank you very much, you know. So I don't have a lot of experience with AdSense apart from, you know, using a buy-sell ads ad and filling it with AdSense when there's nothing sold in there. You know, just like as a backfill. So
right.
That's pretty much how I use it.
Well,
but I didn't actually start with Spire Studios. I had a couple other sites before that.
Right.
Like Freelance Folder.
Yes.
Design News, and yeah, that's about it. So I basically just, when I quit the day job, I started Freelance Folder because I was freelancing. So I figured, well, why not write about it? But then after a while, sold the site, started Design News, sold it again, started Spire Studios, and then sold it, and then started Media Loot. And now I'm working at Buy-sell. So it's like a weird timeline, but... Right. Yeah, well, I'm glad you put that all into perspective for me, because I wasn't aware in what order it happened. Freelance Folder, of course... and I don't want to get into the wrong order, but a lot of the sites you've started have actually... When you sell them, sometimes the new buyer can get it all wrong, and the site can be a complete disaster, and you think, oh my God, that's sad. But I think in your case, I mean, virtually every case, the website's gone on from strength to strength, certainly in terms of Freelance Folder and Spire Studios. Well, I kind of wanted it to, I kind of wanted the new owners of all the sites I ever sold to be either people I knew or people that had like the manpower to grow the website and post more content, and you know, people that have like a design sense that are not going to just put a free WordPress theme on there or things like that. So, of course, if you sell a website like on flippa.com or something like that, you never know. You might get more money out of the website, but you never know what's going to happen with it afterwards. And since the way I do it is I usually, when I start a website, I put my name all over the place. You know, my Twitter account, Facebook, my name is all over the place. So when I when I sold Freelance Folder and Spire Studios, I wanted to make sure that the new owners would keep it going, maybe keep the design or redesign it. So I just approached people that I knew. Like when I sold Freelance Folder, I sold it to Mason, the guy from Media Loot, and he was actually an advertiser on Freelance Folder at that time. So for him, it was an interesting move because he could keep advertising his own services on that site and not have to pay for that, you know, and make money off the website as well.
Okay, so well, quite a lot to go there, because I really want to. I knew this was going to be complicated because I've known you for a long time, and I know you had your fingers in a lot of pies. I didn't quite know how many pies and how it all fitted together. So I'd like to go back, if I may, to the early days of blogging and working as a web designer, and seeing the success of the blogs, and you must have learned a hell of a lot about setting up sites and being able to write the blog posts to get the traffic and build the sites up to a stage where you can sell them. And to do that 3 or 4 times, I mean, you know, what's your secret, John? I
mean, I'm probably the one who knows the least what he's doing, honestly. I mean, well, for Freelance Folder Inspire Studios, back then, you remember we had like Dig, Stumble Upon.
Yeah.
Well, we still have Stumble Upon. We still have Reddit and all those social media sites. But back then, Dig was the thing. You know, it was the biggest website. You could game the system pretty easily. Fortunately, that's probably why it died down. But you know, it was rather easy to have an article hit the front page. So that would bring, I don't know, maybe 50,000, 100,000 visitors in one day or 2 days. Yeah. So it was kind of easy to build the traffic. Because once you have a front page on Dig, back then, I mean, you get backlinks, you get a higher page rank after a while. And, you know, it was just, I find, easier. It was easier back then than it is now.
Yeah. It was easier back then. Even if you take Dig out of the equation, it was easier back then. There was less competition around.
Exactly.
And you could write quite a short article, and it would rank on Google as well quite easily. Because there just weren't so many pages on the internet, and now there's more competition. I think that's another reason.
Totally,
as well. But it's interesting that the social media landscape was completely different. No Twitter, no Facebook, and it was all about Dig and Stumble Upon. And
exactly, Stumble Upon is still there.
Yeah.
But I find it doesn't really bring as much traffic as it used to. But,
and the traffic it does bring is not very sticky. It's just not, it's almost not worth having.
Exactly.
Yeah, but so you did incredibly well there. You obviously got an idea of what the design community wants to read about, and how to market those articles as well, and then you must have got an idea about how to find other writers to write other articles. How did that go as well?
Well, since I was working on just building content, I guess my name made it on, on back then people were doing like 100 top designers on Twitter and lists like that. So my name ended up on there. So I just went to see those lists and saw names of other designers that I just got in touch with. And then, hey, interested in writing an article, have this design blog, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, there you go. That was pretty easy, honestly. Finding the writers was pretty easy. And I would just get maybe 5 to 10 emails a week from people asking if they can submit a guest article. So there was that too. But finding the writers was pretty easy. It's the whole revenue generating thing behind the scenes that was a little more difficult because, like I said, when you write all the content, all the money goes into your pockets. But when you have writers to pay that charge, I don't know, 100 or 150 per article, your $2,500 you can go pretty fast, So that was the hardest part. But
Yeah. But when you build it up. I should imagine, even if you went through a period of not making much money, you'd still build the website up. And the number of articles, if you're putting out articles like 4 or 5 a week, which is much more than you'd be able to do working on your own with all the other things you've got to do, then you'll reap the benefits a few months down the line, perhaps, and the revenue would start picking up as well. But and it is actually hard work, I think.
It is.
Because you've got to, obviously you're getting good quality articles, but you've still got to find the time to get the articles in place, get them all written, get them, put them in the blog, have a system of remembering who's doing what, and and did you have schedules as well, posting schedules?
It was pretty much just like, I have an article, let's post it because last one was posted 3 days ago. I have one, let's do it, And if I don't have one, well, can I write one? Okay, let's do it. It was really like go with the flow. But after a while, like probably the last 6 months, if we were talking about Spire Studios, last 6 months I was running the site. I had a more stable schedule because I was just getting articles, like guest posts and everything, like just regularly. So I had maybe 3, 5, maybe a little more articles in the queue, so I could just schedule them. But when I started that site, it wasn't like that. It was more like going the flow, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly still going with the flow myself. I never have anything scheduled, and if I do anything, I put it out there. I just don't. I don't have any way, and I just think after 6 or 7 years blogging, I really should have a schedule in place, but I don't. Maybe.
But if it works,
Yeah, well, I'm hoping to try later on this year I'm actually hoping to up my posting routine as well, because I've been posting once a week and I really think I need to do more. But anyway, this is not an interview about me; it's an interview about you. So let's carry on. So, I mean, Were you only a how long were you a web designer for? Do you still do web design? I mean, did you just say goodbye to it and concentrate on the sites, or?
Well, I still do web design. I mean, as part of the Bicel Ads team, that's my role there. I'm like the designer guy.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I don't really do freelance gigs anymore because working 40, 50 hours a week. With Bicel Ads, I don't really have time for that, and I have my photography blog that I'm running on the site as well, so contrastly.com. So I don't really do freelance work anymore, but I mean, as part of, like I said, the Bicel Ads team, like I'm the product designer.
Right. Okay,
we don't really have titles, but let's say I'm the product designer because that's pretty much what I do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is good timing now, because I think we should bring it up to the present day. You sold Spire Studios in a couple of years ago. When was that?
2009, 2010, right. I think. 2-3 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
And after that, you had nothing. Did you?
Well, Spire Studios brought me a lot of contacts. I started going like full-time freelance, so I didn't have any blogs to run, articles to edit, or sites to manage. So, but I had a long client list, so I just kept on designing for clients. Yeah. I actually had a client that I think I designed probably 40 websites for them over like 2 years. It was a real estate company, a real estate consulting company. They're great people. And after that, once I saw that I wasn't getting enough gigs and enough freelance, because after a while, since I sold Spire Studios, the contact list was getting a little shorter and shorter and shorter, because most people will want just a one-off design. They just want one website, personal blog or whatever. So they're not going to hire me every week, every month, or every year. So my client list just got shorter and shorter. And I saw a job opening at Bicel Ads, so I just applied, and that's it.
Oh, right, you did. Yeah. But you knew them there anyway. You had contacts there. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So, what was your thinking behind selling Spire Studios then? You had enough with blogging, or?
I would say that. I didn't really, because back then, 3 years ago, all the design blogs were basically just publishing and reacting the same content all over and over again. 50 amazing full background websites, 50 amazing this, 50 amazing that. So I just didn't feel like I had anything to add to the whole thing. So, and even having writers on board, I mean, topics just, you just have to go back to the same topics all over again. So I just figured I'd sell it and let somebody who has other ideas and in a different direction handle the site and just see what happens, And I kind of used that money to start another project. Because between Spire Studios and the real estate designs and Bicel Ads, I started MediaLoot.
Right.
.com. So I kind of needed the funds from the Spire Studios sale to help me start MediaLoot. So,
could you tell us a little bit about MediaLoot?
Of course. It's a premium design resources website.
Right.
It's a membership website. Well, you can basically just go on there, open an account, select the number of credits you want, and then you can download resources, icons, vectors, brushes, and a bunch of other things. Mm-hmm. So I launched that website with Mason, the guy who bought Freelance Folder from me. Right. Since we knew each other, for a couple of years, we just decided to start a new project. So when I sold Spire Studios, I had the money to invest into that project. So that's what I did. But then I left Media Loot and then started working at Bisalad. So the timeline, there's things that overlap always, so.
Yeah. It's very, very, very interesting to hear that the way you do that, you seem to get on a project, grow it for a couple of years, and sell it, have money to get on another project which you can then grow for a few years, and it's an interesting way of doing things. It's something that I feel like I've had one successful website and multiple failures. And so I could.
Oh, same here.
And I could never jump off I could never jump off Rob Cubbon and sell that, because partly the domain name wouldn't really work with anyone else. But anyway, it's a very interesting way of doing it. Mm-hmm. Why don't we talk about buy-sell ads? Because you actually have. I mean, I know it's not as bad as it sounds, but that's like a proper job, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
You're a salaried person at buy-sell ads, but it's 2013 and things are a little different now. So it's not like you go to work in some faceless office and sit in an open plan studio in a little what do you call them,
cubicle. Yeah. No, I mean the buy-sell ads office is in Boston, and most of the team are remote. Right. So I work from home. Pretty much everybody works from home. So it's definitely not the typical office space thing. No.
But buy-sell ads is one of the most famous ad networks out there. I don't know. Obviously after AdSense, but I don't know. It's the one I most know about. Especially in the design. Yeah. In the design field. That you'd see ads from buy-sell ads more often than any other ad network. Mm-hmm. So what's your job like there? You said you mentioned it about you're a design guy.
Yeah.
But you must do other things. It must be interesting. It must have opened you up to another side of the business completely.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the cool thing about buy-sell ads is it was like. Again, I just went with the flow because that's just how I do things, and it was easy to go with buy-sell ads because there was a job opening in sales. That's what I started doing at buy-sell ads. I was running the yogurt.com network and AdPacks network. I wasn't actually a designer when I started there, but it was just a normal transition. Again, I just saw the job opening. I was seeing the freelance stuff just trickling down, and and it's not only about the money, it's also about working with a team. That's something that I really missed working freelance, because you're on your own, you set your own hours. Well, I can still set my own hours and everything, and I'm still on my own, in my little room, but there's always people on Skype or on Campfire we can chat with and just build a product. It's completely different than every freelance gig I've ever had, where I was just designing in Photoshop or Fireworks and then just sending it over to a developer and then never hear from them again. It's a different dynamic. It's totally different. So I wasn't only looking for a paycheck every month or something like that. I was more looking to work with a team. That's what I was looking for. Right. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So how have you found, and what do you create with the team? What are the products? Are they sort of ad packages and stuff like that?
Well, the main buyselads.com website is, like you said earlier, the probably one of the biggest ad marketplaces out there. So there's always UI things we can do, user interface tweaks, CSS things, new page here and there, a new interface there, and so the bisalads.com website is one thing. We also have the Bisalads Pro application, which is, I don't like to compare it to Google, but it's sort of like DoubleClick for Publisher, the FP. It's similar to the Bisalads marketplace, except people can run their own ads, run AdSense, other ad networks. It's like an ad server.
Wow.
So we've worked on that for I think a year before we launched it, and now we're working on a new product. So there's always design projects going on. So yeah, there's always design work to be done.
Right.
Yeah,
and it must be interesting doing these big projects as opposed to doing someone's some blogger's website, which is just a very simple thing. Well, it's not simple, but it gets simple after a while. And now you're doing these much larger applications that are used by a lot of people and with greater functionality. So it must have taught you much more about UI.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I learn something new every day, know.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Bisalads team, there's salespeople, there's developers, there's other designers, and it's just there's a great chemistry between everybody. It's like when I started Bisalads, we were I think only 10 people. Now we're I think 20 or 21. So within like a year and a half, the team just went boom. We just doubled the manpower basically. So and we have more developers now and people we can work with to build something. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah. No, every time I've written to you've always been saying how much you like the Bisalads. And it's always come through in the emails. However, being John Phillips, you've also got other things on your plate. So
of course,
what else?
Have to.
Yeah.
Well, I got this photography blog because I've been working for Bisalads for a little over a year and a half, and I'm kind of missing that managing a blog thing on the side. So, I mean, the goal with that one with Contrastly is not to build it and then sell it. It's just to keep it going because it's kind of an experiment at the same time. Because I want to know. And I want to figure out how to build a site today. Like I said, 5 years ago, front page on Dig and done. Your website is famous, But these days, it's like it's hard to get 1,000 visitors on a new website, know. So it's kind of an experiment, And at the same time, I can test every single Bisalads product on my own website. So that's another point. So
yeah.
So, but I'm saying the goal is not to sell the website, but if the price is right, never know.
Yeah. So that's Contrastly.com, which is for photographers and about photography, cameras, and a little bit of Photoshop and all sorts of stuff like that. So that's very interesting because I always remember that picture of you with a guitar. And like a lake and a mountain in the background. Yes. You're from Montreal.
Yes.
Would English be your second language then?
It is actually. I mostly speak French at home.
Wow. Well, you that's another amazing, feather to your cap, isn't it? You managed to sell I don't know how many successful websites in English, and it's not even.
And I'm a French guy.
and you speak French.
Yep.
But that is truly amazing. But for somebody like me who doesn't speak another language particularly well, but yes. So you're from Montreal, but you obviously get out. You obviously play guitar and you get out into the big outdoors and
yes.
And what are some things you do that enables you to work from home successfully, because it can be quite difficult sometimes.
Yeah. Well, when I was freelancing, it was much harder when I was freelancing because if there's a project that needs to be completed by Monday and it's Thursday night and you have like 2 weeks worth of stuff to do on that project, and 4 days. You pull an all-nighter, and then you go to bed at 11 a.m. and then you wake up at 6. It was pretty crazy for some time, but got to do it.
Yeah.
But now that I work at Bicelads, I mean, it's more like a 9 to 5 thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I still work on in the evenings on a couple of things, but it's much more stable, and it's much more stable.
Yeah.
I sleep. I go to bed at 11, wake up at 6:30, 7. It's better for my health.
Yeah. It's good to have the time, organising the time properly, so you have proper rest, and resting your mind and resting your body and everything like that. And do you still play guitar?
I do.
Yeah.
Well, that picture you mentioned with the lake, I was in Lake Louise, Western Canada, because in 2008, I was in a band, and we released an album. We did a Canadian tour, so we went from east of Canada all the way 5,000 kilometers west, and then back in 1 month. So got some great pictures there. So that was one of the pictures we took at Lake Louise there. But the band split and everything, happens.
Yeah.
Different opinions on the direction of the music and everything. So I think the band split in 2010 or 2011. So since then, I haven't played another band or anything, but I still play just casually at home. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was talking to another web designer recently, and I think it's amazing how many web designers are musicians as well. There's got to be I've got to do some sort of statistical analysis on this.
That's actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because every Friday, or usually on Fridays, on Campfire with Bicelads, there's Mark who's got banjo lessons. Nathan plays the drums. Everybody. We're 20 people, and I think everybody plays an instrument. It's insane. We did like a Bicelads Christmas party, all on Skype. There's one guy on the keyboard, another guy on the drums, and I was playing guitar, and we were just jamming on Skype with the Bicelads team. That was pretty insane.
How do you do that? There's some sort of time delay, isn't there?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess there was, but like the sound gets into your speaker, and what you hear is in sync.
Right. Yeah.
But it worked.
Oh. Did you record it?
No, I took screenshots so I can make animated GIFs, but I didn't record it.
Oh, well, John, look, you've had such an interesting career so far. And usually when I speak to someone, it's they're web designers, and that's what they've done. You've been a web designer, sort of a blogger, a website flipper, although that's probably not a correct way of saying it. But you've sold a few websites,
yep.
And now you work for an ad network and creating apps and UI and different products. For advertisers. So what I'd love to ask you would be if there was something that you could say to encourage or advice for somebody, a web designer out there, maybe listening to this interview. What would it be in terms of in terms of what you've done? What do you think has been your one secret, or have you got any advice for anyone? I never seem to ask that question in it well. I do it every time, and it just comes out. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, one thing. What worked for me might not work for somebody else. It's like that with everything. But I've always went with the flow. If you have an idea and you're in the zone, just do it. Like that's what I did with Design News. And I just had no idea that project would get 100,000 visitors a month. I just, why not? That's a cool idea. Let's just do it. And I did that in an evening. Next morning it was up, and the first month was already getting like 50,000 visitors a month. I don't know. It just happened, you know? So best piece of advice would be to just go with the flow. If your gut feeling is I should do this or I should do that, well, just do it. You know, sometimes you're kind of stuck doing like freelance gigs, and then once that one's done, you got another one, and then you're like a machine, and you just keep pushing designs out. And sometimes it's just great to work on your own projects, and when you're in the zone and you have an idea, just do it. Yeah. Like the Nike commercials. Just do it.
Yeah, but it's not quite what I think about when I watch the Nike commercials. I think it's really important in the context of what you've done is just to, if you get an idea, do it. And also, it's not as though everything, you know, we were mentioning that, you know, I've had several ideas that they've been failures, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, because you learn from that.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you get an idea, do it, and even if it's a failure, don't worry. If you get the next idea, still keep on doing them, and because you're still getting ideas and you're still doing them, and you know, I'm sure there's going to be lots more interesting things coming out from you, John.
I hope so.
Oh yeah, and I hope I get to hear about them as well, because I mean half of what you told me I didn't know, and you know, really interesting. So John, where could people find you if they want to get in touch with you? I usually say this to people who actually want to, you know, obviously your own personal blog is just like your name at the moment, but there's also contrastly.com.
I think the best place would be on Twitter, honestly. Right. Well, right now, because I had I've always wanted to have a personal blog where I can write about whatever, like what's going on in my day, a great picture I shot, or with projects I'm working on. And about 2 years ago, I started that, and I went, nice. I finally have my own personal blog. That's not only about design. It can be about music. It can be about just a funny thing I saw or whatever. But then after trying to blog on that johnphillips.ca blog for about 2 years, I realized that I don't really enjoy that. You know, because if there's no set topics, and I just... You know, I get the writer's block, and I wrote a couple, I think, good articles on that site, but then I decided just put it on maintenance mode, redesign it, and probably do something else with it. Maybe just a splash page with just like contact information or something like that. Or I might just go with the flow, and if I feel like it, I'll just turn it into a blog at some point. Or I don't know. I just always wanted to have like a personal blog, but... Like, you know, like Jeffrey Zeldman has, like Jason Santamaria, they always have nice stuff on their blogs. But it's not always about design. It's all about technology, about life and stuff like that. But I don't know. I just didn't really have the time to write on it. And I don't know. Just the ideas didn't... I guess I'm better at solving problems and building stuff than actually writing. So, but I'm, on the other hand, like I said earlier, I'm a French guy, so maybe writing in English doesn't really come that easily to me. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it doesn't come out that easily to me, and English is my first language. But
cool. That's good to know.
Yeah, definitely. But we're actually digging in a bit. You go with the flow, and yet you know when to call a halt on something. And you know, this isn't working. I'm going to move on to something else now. So that's there's another lesson there. So anyway, you're saying you are John Phillips on Twitter, I believe.
It's actually Joe Phillips.
Joe Phillips.
There's no N because it's Joe Phillips.
Jophillips.
Because John Phillips wasn't available. So
I guess so. I never even noticed, and I follow you, so it doesn't matter, does it? So anyway, I'll put all these sites on the blog post of this video interview and podcast, so if people can come and hook up with you there. But John, it's been really a pleasure to speak to you, and I'm so pleased to have met you after all this time.
Pleasure's all mine.